I'm Keon.
And this is inevitable, that podcast will replace monetary value over the safety of the human race, because this week we watched Conflict.
Written by Ruric Powell.
Directed by Ken Turner.
And aired on October 7th, 1970. Fairly realistic intro.
Yeah, True
to life.
True to life. True to our glorious society, But that feels like a reference to something. Somebody said that phrase or something similar at some point in history. I don't know.
Glorious society?
Yeah. I'm thinking of something, like a phrase that's very similar to that. That's like, wow, I Googled glorious society and I found a clothing store in Victorville, Quebec that's permanently closed.
Nice. What are you, like, are you thinking of, like, Gilded Age or something like that? Or?
Yeah, something like that. Something along those lines.
Mm-hmm. Well, similarly true to life, this episode sucked.
Wow, just getting right into it, Keon. Just getting right into it.
Yeah, I did not like this one bit. I mean, why beat around the bush, right?
Yeah, I guess. Why?
Why
exactly what you just said. There's no better way to say it than that, I suppose.
Why mince words? We didn't when we watched Lex. Actually, we kind of did, come to think of it. We were holding out hope. We were like, this might turn for the better, but it didn't. This wasn't Lex level.
For 4 weeks, for 1 month during Lex, we consistently went, well, XYZ in the episode wasn't that bad.
Meanwhile, hating the rest of it.
Yeah, meanwhile, secretly sitting there going, Jesus, this was terrible. What are we doing with our lives? I mean, I didn't hate this episode. I don't even think I necessarily disliked this episode. But I didn't like it either. I just was like, okay, that was a thing. I watched it and I was like, okay, I watched it.
Mm-hmm. I didn't enjoy how a lot of it was just political meandering. And it was meandering. That's why I use that term, because my God, was it meandering. A lot of the imagery and, when they actually get into space and start doing battle with the UFOs, or I wouldn't call them action scenes, but the more action-oriented scenes, I enjoyed. As
usual for UFO, the model work was incredible.
Yeah, I think we can just kind of... That's sort of something that goes for the entire show, I think. I don't think we're going to get any poor modeling. Probably.
I mean, you never know. We're only 4 episodes in out of 24, so...
26? Yeah, 26.
26. We're only approximately 15% of the way through the show, so...
That's true.
Chugging along very slowly.
Have we... This is probably a stupid question, but I don't know the answer to it. Have we watched anything that has been post... those 19 episodes that they originally made? I don't think so.
Yeah, Cat with 10 Lives.
Oh, well, yeah, okay. Oh, so last
Freeman
week, yeah.
wasn't in it and Virginia Lake was.
Oh, yeah,
now
true.
We're back to the pre-production break because we've got Freeman back. Freeman doing basically nothing in this episode. Freeman being sent to the moon to write up a report that could basically avoid most of the events of this episode, failing to do so in a reasonable timescale, and then Foster having to take matters into his own hands to prove basically their theory.
It's becoming a little more obvious. There's still time for them to prove this wrong, but I think it's becoming a little more obvious that sometimes Freeman, and I guess Virginia Lake, because they're, like we mentioned last week, kind of in the same position. But it's becoming more obvious that character is, often just there to have someone for Strager to talk to,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess on the bright side, Freeman wasn't a misogynist this week. Yay. What a low bar.
Yeah, but were there really any major female characters this week? I don't think so. If memory serves,
I did think it was kind of
no.
funny. Well, I mean, the leader of Moonbase or whatever her name was. I don't think they said her name a single time in this episode. But I did think it was kind of funny how she like knew Straker's plan, but Freeman was just like, "What's going on?"
Yeah, a lot of this is
kept Freeman out of the loop, I guess, almost intentionally.
Yeah, a lot of this is just a blur to me because I watched this a full-on week ago and really paid less attention to the episode than I should have when I started paying less attention to it when I realized I didn't enjoy it at all. Wasn't enjoying it, rather.
Okay, here's a question. Is Freeman the Yates of Shadow? Just kind of there, just kind of doesn't do much, might potentially have the one episode that completely reframes his character.
Yates, like from Doctor Who?
Yes, from Unit.
Well, he was, I mean...
In a way, Shadow and Unit are kind of the same thing.
Yeah, it's true, actually. Shadow actually just seems a lot more prepared and equipped than Unit ever was.
Yeah, like Torchwood almost.
Well,
Shadow is like Unit, but with the preparedness of Torchwood. They don't have the like. Well, I was gonna say they don't have the lack of morality that Torchwood seems to have, but I don't know. My Straker's questionable order of the week is just ordering them to shut down all power and potentially just convince Henderson that they're about to get blown to smithereens. But we'll get there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know if I would say he's the Yates of UFO. God, I almost said UFO. It's like so is the show like what? I know they switch between UFO and UFO in dialogue, but like the show is just UFO, right? It's not.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
Okay. Good.
My question is it a UFO or an UFO?
I mean, I guess it would just be
You're the English expert here.
Well, it's like if you say it as UFO, it doesn't really start with a vowel sound, so I guess it would just be A. I don't know. Beats me.
What do I keep you around for, Keon? Come on.
Yeah, that's a good question. Have fun detailing the plot of this by yourself, basically. So, yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Fantastic. Well, the episode opens with
it opens
two at the time unnamed pilots, but then one of them gets a name and becomes like unreasonably important to the episode in a little bit. Like flying the shuttle between the moon and Earth.
I know, that was actually an annoying aspect of the episode. I know that's kind of a harsh criticism and probably an undue one, but like just the amount that like just the stir that Maddox's death causes when we didn't even really know who he was to begin with. I don't know, something about that didn't sit well with me.
You didn't think Maddox was the best character we've ever met on UFO? The personality that just shines through in these moments. The impact of his unforeseen death.
It reminded me of...
There wasn't a dry eye in the audience at my house. By which, just me watching this. There wasn't a dry eye.
I know, you were busy laughing at how inappropriately out of proportion they blow all of this. And it's weird because it's actually not. It's like, I guess for the characters in the episode, his death actually has a massive impact. It's just like as an audience, he's such a nothing character before he dies that there's a little bit of a mismatch.
In a way, the mismatch is even more underscored by the fact that like Foster and Freeman believe there's something more to his death, but like secretly Straker is actually just kind of like, I think it was pilot error and I think we should move on. Like, and he thinks that up until the moment that Foster goes rogue, which we'll explain in a little bit, but like for once you're kind of always on Straker's side, but like Straker's just like, yeah, it was pilot error, like whatever guys. But then at the end, Straker, I guess, flips and is like, we should call it the Maddox Fund. I'm like foreshadowing like every major plot beat of this episode. So they're flying to Earth, and while they're flying, they have to kind of take note of all the space debris. And
yeah, don't you just love that British pronunciation? debris.
They're taking note of all the space debris. There, I said it both ways for all of our audience members. They pass by the wreck of Apollo 8. Not really the wreck, but like the leftover junk from Apollo 8. And on the backside of Apollo 8, we see this tiny little silver spacecraft, this UFO.
Right, so right away you kind of are clued into what is going to be happening in the episode, which is that the UFOs, I kind of just want to like slap myself every time I say UFO for some reason, but like the UFOs are going to be using debris in Earth's orbit to hide, basically.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, on Earth, Straker shows up at like the coolest, like the most like futuristic looking street in London.
Yeah, this idea that the UFOs are using the debris to hide is kind of underscored by the fact that concurrently with all of this, Straker is actively at this exact moment telling the head of the International Astrophysical Commission this very theory.
Mm-hmm. Does he?
Because apparently the IAC is responsible for it's responsible for clearing the space debris. Mm-hmm. I'm amazed that I keep flipping back and forth on pronunciation.
It's fine. Anyway, it's UFO, whatever,
And so Straker's trying to convince him to remove all of the remaining debris, mm-hmm. To no avail, I should add.
Right.
And this is Henderson.
Does he explicitly tell Henderson that he wants to do this because of... He doesn't mention UFOs, right? Because Henderson isn't really...
No, but he doesn't mention UFOs this first talk, but he does basically outright state that removing all of the debris is for the safety of the human race. Right. And the fact that the way this is edited intercuts that with shots of the UFO flying out from behind the wreck of Apollo 8 kind of just underscores that that's obviously what he means.
Right.
Even if it is, subtext necessarily.
Mm-hmm. This starts a trend in this episode that was basically the full-on reason why I didn't like it, is that there's just so much like of Straker and Henderson kind of just sitting around discussing these sort of political, maneuvers. And
it's not so much maneuvers as just trying to convince Henderson to actually do his job.
Yeah, right, sure.
Because Henderson's like, yeah, we're not going to do that because you know how much money it would cost to remove all of the space debris?
Mm-hmm.
And Straker's like, yeah, but what does that cost next to the safety of the human race? And Henderson's like, eh.
Yeah, I see where he's coming from, right? He's at the end of his life, basically. Who cares?
Wow.
Well, okay,
wow.
Yeah, all right.
Wow. I don't know if you meant that in universe or you meant that to be as potentially tasteless as it actually was.
His character is at the end of his life, essentially.
Yeah.
He's an old man.
So what I'm referencing is that, I'll just explain for the audience that Grant Taylor, who plays Henderson, died pretty shortly after UFO finished in 1971, and UFO is actually his final acting credit.
Yeah. But I can see where he's coming from, For who once you're dead, like, who cares, right? Who cares about everyone left behind?
I mean, I suppose. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
I actually just... Okay, yeah. Never mind. I'm not going to say what I was going to say.
Okay.
I will say that I've just pulled up a script for the episode, so I can scroll through it and kind of figure out what's happening.
Well, it's a good news that I took copious notes. I have a note here that the alien spaceship looks like something that I feel like if I say what it is on air, I'm going to have to give this episode an explicit tag, so I guess I just won't.
Oh, really? I have no idea actually what you're referring to.
Kind of looks like a
Well, there's the explicit rating, I guess. Or it was bleeped out.
I guess the audience will find out in 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, Henderson just kind of okay, so I guess I kind of also stopped paying as much attention to this episode as I should have, because the first 10 minutes of this episode I have 15 notes, and then the remaining 38 minutes of the episode I have cumulatively 15 notes. So for those
that's
38 minutes.
That's normal though. For me at least, that is completely normal. It lines up with what I do every week. The first 5 minutes are just 50 notes, and then the next 45 minutes are just 2 notes. But okay, so actually in a way, Henderson's character kind of compels us to not pay attention, because this might have just been me, and I think I got used to it, or it got better over the course of the episode, but here at the beginning, his character was very hard to understand. He kind of just mumbled. He had this weird... He somehow simultaneously pulled off mumbling but also talking really loudly. Usually those two things don't go together. But he did it. He pulled it off.
Well, he basically tells Straker to get out of his office by just opening the door. And then he just sulks in his chair. I was like, oh, okay.
Meanwhile, Moonbase is going on red alert. Actually, this isn't meanwhile. I think this is a little bit later. But
yeah, this is quite a bit later
wise.
Because Straker leaves the office, and then Maddox's spaceship crashes, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And then Straker goes back to Henderson and is like, look, it was probably space debris. And Henderson has the least sympathetic theory as to Maddox dying, which is that he killed himself.
Yeah, so why they're actually discussing this, I think, is that there was something odd about Maddox's angle of entry or something like that. It was he was flying at an odd angle.
He was coming in too steep.
And so Straker was okay, it was space debris, and Henderson obviously, like you just said, was nope, he just suicided.
Back in his office, Straker reveals that he actually does think it was just pilot error.
Yeah.
But Foster and Freeman are not having it.
Nope. They were on Moonbase at the time, I believe, and so they...
Yeah, Foster's wearing this bitchin' silver jumpsuit. Foster has so many wild outfits this episode. When he gets down to Earth, he wears this plum-colored suit that John Pertwee would wear as the Third Doctor.
Hey, Sylvia Anderson going all out.
I guess. But so Freeman is supposed to be writing up this report for the IAC. So the IAC, the council, the International Astrophysical Council, is supposed to be or commission actually, but then the commission is consisting of a council and then Henderson at the top, is supposed to be meeting to discuss this space debris problem in 2 days. And Straker wants Freeman to finish the report ASAP because he wants that report in his hand. He doesn't care what form it's in. And Freeman's like, I need 24 hours to confirm what we all think. And Straker's like, what do we all think? Freeman's like, that it was space debris. And Straker's like, yeah, right.
And I just take a shot every time they say space debris. Dead within the first 20 minutes of the episode.
So then I think during this conversation where I forgot the head of the IAC's name. Henderson is Henderson is like, yeah, I'm putting you guys on red alert. I'm grounding you all flights from Moonbase. And apparently the code word that they use when communicating with Moonbase to tell them this is Washington Square.
Oh, was it? I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah, because Miss Eland, and it also, by the way, seems like Straker gets a new assistant every week. Miss Eland is like, hey, Straker, and he's like, the one code word I never thought we would ever use is Washington Square. And Miss Eland's like, what does Washington Square mean? And he's like, it means all flights from Moonbase are grounded. So they call Moonbase and they go, Washington Square. And, okay, another indication that Freeman is just like the most useless second in command of all time, because the head of Moonbase, so Foster and Freeman are like eating lunch next to the food machine, and the head lady of Moonbase, is this Vina? I don't know.
It beats me.
She calls them and goes, okay, we're on Washington Square. And Freeman's like, what does that mean? And Foster, the new recruit, is like, oh, it means all flights from Moonbase are grounded. Like, why wouldn't Freeman know that?
That's actually like a bit of good characterization, I think. Like, it just perfectly like angles the entire relationship.
Yeah, I guess.
I can't believe I just used the word angles. I guess maybe Steve Maddox's death really rubbed off on me in a way that I didn't even...
Yeah, because of those angles.
Yeah, exactly. That angle of entry. What happens next, if I'm not mistaken, is that Freeman and Foster decide to recreate Maddox's course.
Oh, it's not even Freeman and Foster. It's just Foster. Because Freeman walks into the command room and he's like, hey, where's Foster? And like no one's saying anything. He's like, he's on the launch pad, isn't he? Mm-hmm. And they're like, we're not saying anything. He's like, he's on the launch pad, isn't he? So he calls up Foster and he's like, you gotta leave. And Foster's like, no, I'm doing this. And Freeman's like, all right, I guess.
Fine.
So then they call Straker and they're like, hey, Straker, by the way, like, Foster's doing a thing. Straker's like, really?
He gets kind of pissed, I think.
So they all call up Foster, but he's already launched, and they're like, okay, well, I guess Foster's about to die.
How does he get out of it? I don't remember what the result of this is.
Well, so his theory was that the UFO, like, drags your angle of attack down, so he actually enters the atmosphere at too shallow of an angle, and in that way the UFO's, like, effect actually just corrects the angle of attack into the atmosphere instead of making it too steep.
Mm-hmm, so I guess that's how they kind of prove to themselves that the UFOs were behind it. And is this when, like, after this, I believe it's like he and Straker are kind of, they're kind of all in on this idea, and they return to Henderson and kind of
well, they go all in because Foster survives to everybody's shock and surprise.
Yeah.
This is when Foster puts on his plum-colored suit.
Yeah, they head down to Earth and they kind of go and intimidate Henderson a little bit.
Henderson thinks that Straker ordered this flight, that he ordered Foster to do this, and Straker kind of doesn't deny this, but he does kind of just go like, why would I do that?
Henderson always just has an answer for everything, is what it is. I mean, he's jumping through so many hoops to not accept Straker's idea, essentially.
Yeah, at this point, it's actively more difficult to, like, not believe him. Like, it's more difficult not to believe Straker than it is to just, like, accept that Straker might be correct on this one.
But it's also more costly.
I guess.
So at this point, I think the UFOs make themselves known, right? Like, they just come out.
Well, not quite. So Freeman and Foster working in tandem via Zoom. If Foster really points this out to Straker that, like, if there is a UFO hiding behind space debris, then it must be behind 4 possibilities, essentially. Because there are 4 large pieces of space debris along the course that he took, that Maddox also took to fly to Earth. And so they basically send out interceptors to blow up all 4 possible space debris,
Oh, is that what it was? Yeah.
Yeah, and this is when Henderson charges his way over to Edmonton Straker Studios or whatever it is, and demands
Harlington
to
Straker.
Harlington Straker, and demands to see Straker, but Straker is in a meeting doing his other job as a film executive.
Right.
And I kind of thought, I'm curious to know if you thought this, but like just the way that this meeting was set up when he walks in and how he's like in this meeting with a director who's pitching him a script who's like kind of overly sings Straker's praises, who's like, Straker, you're such a great guy. Thanks for signing off on this. Like, don't you worry, I'll do everything you want and more. And then he like turns to Henderson as he's leaving and goes, this guy, he's a great guy, and then leaves. I was like, is Straker just like faking this entire thing? Like, is this just like a low-level shadow operative pretending to be a director? But that's not the case. But yeah, I don't know. Did you think that? Like, then when the UFO was attacking, I was like, man, is this like all just like, is Straker just faking a UFO attack to convince Henderson he's right? Like,
the idea didn't even cross my mind. I was so checked out of the episode by this point that I basically just wanted it to be over.
Wow.
Yep.
I don't know. I really liked the idea that Straker might just be like faking an attack here to convince Henderson that he's right. I mean, like everything up until the moment the UFO actually shows up feels like it could just be faked.
Could be an interesting twist that, like, throughout this whole thing, we think like, Straker's he's positioned as the good guy, right? He's trying to save Earth and uncover these aliens that have been using debris to hide. Yet he's not above, being a little underhanded to do that. And we've seen that before, where he's not above being a little underhanded to achieve his goals, but that's not the case here.
Yeah, Straker's an interesting character because of that fact that in certain situations he's like not afraid to bend and even break the rules in order to get what he wants.
Yep.
But anyway, no, he's not doing that here. So a UFO is attacking Harlington Straker Studios specifically. And this is why I thought it was like suspicious why they might be like faking it, because I was like, really, like they've never directly attacked HQ before. And this is when we get to my favorite, my nomination for Straker's questionable command of the week, where he is just, the UFO is coming. It is attacking them. Like, it is coming to attack them. And Straker turns to his subordinates and goes, cut the power. Cut everything. And they're like, but what? And Straker's like, just do it. So they cut the power, and they're just kind of standing there. And Straker turns to Henderson. He's like, still time for you to leave if you want. We're probably going to get blown up here. And we're all going to die. And Henderson's like, wait, what? Straker's like, yep. It's going to attack us, and we're going to die. This is what happens when you don't clear space debris.
Oh, God. Just the way you said that. Oh, God. There's an episode of Evangelion where, like, it's basically about, I don't remember it too well, but it's basically about them getting trapped in, like, their headquarters, their underground headquarters. Yeah, I wonder where that comes from. In a very similar situation to this, they're, like, under attack and they have no power. And I think it was probably directly inspired by this, as a lot of stuff in that show was directly inspired by things in UFO.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Anyway, I have a note here that's like, what? Couldn't we just use Skydiver? Because Henderson's like, quick, launch some interceptors. And Straker just goes, no, we can't. The interceptors don't work in the Earth's atmosphere. And the UFOs are already in the stratosphere. So, yeah, We got nothing. I guess Henderson doesn't know about Skydiver.
Yeah, they could just launch Sky 1.
Which they do,
Yeah,
actually.
they do. George, or is that Peter? Peter Clark.
Yeah, Peter. Well, so they're like, so Henderson says, so what are we waiting for? And Straker goes, we're waiting for some words. And Henderson's like, what does that mean? And then Miss Eland calls down and she says, okay, Sky 1 has flown overhead. And then Straker goes, all right, turn the power back on, load everything back. I was so confused as to what this did, though. Like, what was the plan here? Like, why did turning off the power... Like, what? Why did turning off the power... Why was it necessary?
Yeah, I don't know. You're asking... I know you're asking sort of facetiously and stuff, but like, yeah, you're asking the wrong person. I don't know.
Freeman also is like, why is he turning off the power? And then like when Sky 1 flies overhead and he turns on the power, Freeman's like, so that's what he was doing. And I was like, what is he doing? Freeman, care to explain? No, Freeman doesn't explain.
Well, so they basically just intercept the UFO, right? They get it.
Mm-hmm.
And Straker decides to be all high and mighty towards Henderson. And he walks him out. Henderson concedes, basically. He goes like, all right, we'll remove the space debris, fine.
If we have to, but it's going to take time to raise all that money. And Straker's like, call it the Maddox Fund.
Yeah.
Henderson's like, fine.
First smidgen of indication in this episode that he actually cared about Maddox.
Yeah, because again, Straker was like, I think it was pilot error.
Only when he can lord it over someone does he care about his subordinates.
Well, when you put it like that... When you put it like that, it's perfectly in line with what Straker would do.
It is, but you also kind of get the impression that, like, he was kind of just... He actually did care about Maddox, and he was kind of just maybe bottling that up a little bit the entire time. And sort of, this is his way of caring about it kind of coming out. Or something like that.
Something like that.
I mean, but then Henderson is walking out, and Straker goes like, "All right, I'll see you to your car, Henderson." So you get the impression that they kind of make up in a way, or they like there aren't hard feelings between them or something like that. So that's what I got out of it anyway.
Henderson doesn't seem very pleased about this, but I guess we'll find out in his 8 other appearances on this show.
I was pretty surprised to learn that. He seems like such a one-off character, right?
He does feel very specific to this story, yes.
Because his entire role in this story is to be the mouthpiece for something that seems pretty specific to this story, which is the commission.
Yeah.
I'm looking on the, because I know we mention this every week, but Wikipedia has like a little cast list indicating how many episodes the person is in. He's not on that list. I'm not saying you're wrong, but I'm just saying he's not on the list.
Well, I'm just going by what IMDb says, that he comes back in 8 more episodes.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that's correct. It's just, oh no, he is. I just missed it. Here we go. Yeah, he's in 9 episodes. Yeah.
Nice.
9 episodes according to this. So, same as IMDb. Yeah, actually, you know what?
Nice.
Now that you mention it, you were talking about this before we started recording. Now that you mention it, Grant Taylor does seem extremely familiar.
Right?
Yep.
He seems so familiar, but I don't know, like, from where.
Both, like, once I put the name to his appearance, saw his actor's name written out, I was like, okay, yeah, this guy, I've seen this guy before.
Yeah, but, like, I don't really recognize any of the other stuff he's in.
No, you're right. I'm looking at his credits here.
But I'm like so convinced I've seen him somewhere before. Freaking weird, man. Well, I actually think I talked about everything I wanted to for this episode. The most interesting part to me of this episode was the idea that Straker might just be faking this UFO attack.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to, I guess, the strength of the characterization throughout the episodes we've seen so far. If we're already, able to kind of have a theory like that about Straker, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, this
I was just
going to show this characterization really well, which I don't know if that's related to what you were going to say.
It is. So, like, a couple weeks ago, I mentioned, like, it isn't really the story of UFO that I think is the main draw of it. And I think that's fully in line with what we're seeing here. It's more like, it's more just the character interactions, the characterization, and the kind of world that they have built. I think I stand by that idea that that more so than like the actual plot beat story is what's interesting about UFO.
I think that's certainly true for this episode. The plot of this episode is okay. It's not thrilling, but the character interactions, Straker and Foster and Freeman, that's what keeps you going on this episode.
Yeah, and it's interesting that this show is entirely about alien invaders attacking every week, but there's almost no the characterization that we're talking about is entirely within Shadow. The aliens don't. What I mean by that is the aliens don't have a character, right? They have a motivation, whatever that is. I mean, it's been called into question already, but they have a motivation, and that's pretty much it. They're not really characters in any way.
Yeah, it's a show about alien invasions where the humans are the focus.
The humans are even...
The humans are the most interesting.
Yeah, and the humans are even maybe the secondary or even primary villains, right? Henderson is really, in this episode, he's not a villain, but he's the one who is essentially he's enabling the havoc that the UFOs are causing. So, pretty interesting. Pretty interesting stuff. I say after I've just gone on for however many minutes about how boring all of this was, which I still think is true. I still think it was an incredibly boring episode that I had a very difficult time paying attention to.
Well, kind of understandable, because so much of this episode is just political maneuvering, which, again, kind of focusing back in on that, the characters are the most interesting part. The political maneuvering potentially, I think, is boring because there's not a lot of character to be had there. It's so one note in your eyes, just in your face, almost right there. And
it's a little dry. Yeah, not a little. It is just flat out dry.
And also, just because Henderson's not a character we've ever met before. We don't have a lot of investment in his character. Straker, already we have kind of a hold on who Straker is as a person, and we just at this point we don't care about Henderson yet. So the interaction between Henderson and Straker just kind of falls flat from an audience perspective because the only person you care about in the interaction is Straker, and you can only get so far with one person carrying a scene of two people.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what we think of Henderson when he comes back, now that we have this establishment for who he is, basically.
There is actually the one thing I did kind of want to talk about very briefly was that I almost feel I wish this had been episode 3 instead of Cat with 10 Lives, just because Foster is such a driving force. Foster goes rogue in this episode, and I think that would have been a really interesting... I think that probably would have been more impactful and more interesting if we had seen that right after Foster joins Shadow, his immediate next move is to like basically go rogue, essentially, right?
Maybe, yeah. And just also pairing that with the fact that he seems to know more about Shadow already than Freeman is like, he's both all in on this and willing to go his own way.
And willing to basically die for it.
Yep.
Right? So I think that would have been interesting to see. Obviously, we don't get that, which that's okay, I guess. But that's kind of the last thing I wanted to touch on.
Well, I guess we can go into our actors segment here.
Yeah, our actors segment. So I looked up, as we said, Grant Taylor, who plays Henderson. He was in Fraud Squad, Doomwatch, The Avengers, Sherlock Holmes, ITV Play of the Week, Emergency Ward 10, I don't know what that is, BBC Play of the Month, Court Martial, The Saint, Whiplash, The Adventures of Long John Silver, Long John Silver's Return to Treasure Island, and yeah, that looks like the biggest things he's been in.
Interesting. Yeah, that's going to bother me probably for the next however long. Is like, man, why does he seem so familiar? But anyway, I looked up Drew Henley, who played Maddox. He died in 2016, but his last acting role was in 1978, so I guess he just stopped acting after that. But anyway, he's been in The Badger Game, Suspense, Heavens Above, ITV Play of the Week, as all of these actors have been in at some point. Operation Crossbow, he's uncredited in that. He's uncredited in seemingly a lot of things, relatively. He was in The Avengers, Wuthering Heights, 1967, Z-Cars, as a recurring. He has a couple of different roles in Z-Cars, one of them recurring. He was in When Dinosaurs Ruled the Earth, The Doctors, Special Branch, The Protectors. He was in... So, okay, this is interesting. He was in Space 1999, which is obviously related to UFO. But he played a different character. But if I remember correctly, the character of Maddox is mentioned in Space 1999. So he plays a different character, but his character from UFO is mentioned on that show.
Nice.
I think so hold on. Okay, so here, according to Wikipedia, Steve Maddox was the name of... Oh, wait, what? Steve Maddox was the name of John Koenig in the first Space 1999 script, 0G. I don't know exactly what that means, but there you go. So either his character was renamed, or the wording of that sentence is a little ambiguous. I'm just not sure what it means, so I don't know. But anyway, back to Drew Henley. His last role was in a TV movie called Destination Moonbase Alpha, but his second to last role was in Star Wars Episode 4 as Red Leader.
He was Red Leader?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Kind of wild, honestly.
Yeah.
I also looked up, I just did this now, she's only got like 4 acting credits, so it'll be short. Norma Ronald as Miss Eland. Figured might as well look up the secretary since I looked her up last week. Yeah, so her last acting credit was something called Chalky's Challenge. She was also in Ragnarok Solo, 10 episodes of UFO as Miss Eland, so she's around for a while. Journey to the Far Side of the Sun. She was actually as Webb's secretary, uncredited apparently. Conflict, The Power Game, and The Plane Makers, and that's everything. And a show called Husband of the Year as herself.
Huh.
Apparently.
It looks like I just looked up Destination Moonbase Alpha. Some itch inside was telling me to look that up, and it does seem like it's related to like Space 1999 /UFO. Like it's I don't know exactly what it is, but yeah, it's somehow related.
It's somehow related. Anyway, I have an email to read from Stephen, of course. UFO conflict. This was episode 6 in the order I watched, so not too far off in the order you're using compared to other episodes. When watching this, I thought to myself that I'm not so sure about the pacing of some of these episodes, but maybe the sound effects became ear candy that allows the viewer to vibe with the show while it's on. I think Grant Tyler did a pretty good job as General Henderson, especially when he was yelling at Straker. Also, I did in fact finish Blake 7 within my 7-day trial on BritBox. More like Bleak 7, am I right? Overall, I thought the show was I can guarantee I'll never watch it again. Once again, I did wonder about the influence on Babylon 5 when there was a prediction of possibly the Liberator blowing up. As Babylon's 5 creator has said, such a prophecy is not a spoiler, it's all about the context. It was fun seeing Colin Baker in that one episode, and when Richard Hurndall showed up, I wondered at first if it was William Hartnell, but then realized he'd be dead by that point, so I guess I see why Richard Hurndall was cast to play the first Doctor in the 5 Doctors, but it's really weird that I didn't find him very convincing as the first Doctor in that, whereas I mistook him for Hartnell in Blake 7. At least I have Zenith episodes to look forward to. I even listened to Volume 1 of the Liberator Chronicles and the 40th anniversary audio the way ahead, but I just wasn't really into them. I'm okay with that, though. It just means Blake 7 audios aren't for me, and I won't be tempted whenever Big Finish has more discounted sales for the series. I already buy enough Big Finish as it is. Cheers, Stephen.
Yes, by this point, when we're recording, Stephen, you and I have already talked about Blake 7 a little bit, because we did yesterday, when we were recording an episode of Delayed Replay, which is Stephen's one of Stephen's podcasts, so check that out. I'll put some links to it in the show notes, or Dylan will, if he preempts me with it.
Dang, I was hoping that since you had said you would put them in, I wouldn't have to, but now you've said I preempt you.
You don't have to. So if you don't, I will. It's just sometimes when I say I do it, you just do it first, so I'm like, oh, okay, so whatever. Yeah, so we've already talked about it a little bit, and yeah, I'll just repeat what I said before. I think I said this, which is that I'm kind of impressed that you watched it all in a week, and I think that also doing that somehow is related to you not liking the show as much as maybe Dylan and I did.
Yeah, I definitely think that's related. I think watching that show that quickly is to your detriment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's more of a slow burn show
get to
type
let
show.
The episodes simmer and stew in their juices.
Yeah.
God, that sounded so disgusting. I don't know why I said that way. Yum. Just eating Blake 7 episodes. Which Blake 7 episode do you think would taste the best? Which Blake 7 episode do you think would taste the worst?
That's a good question. I don't know. Whichever one left the worst taste in my mouth. I can't even...
Mission to Destiny or whatever.
Now that I look back...
taste the worst.
I like that one. I can't even think of one single Blake 7 episode that I disliked, to be honest, looking back on it.
Yeah, so I guess we were thinking about taste differently. I was thinking about, the taste of the episode being related to the content of the episode and not as to whether or not I liked it or not. So I was just trying to find the episode of Blake 7 that had the most disgusting, stuff in it.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that.
Maybe that one where Avon walks into that room and kicks over that chair. Animals, that's the one. That one would probably taste the worst. Just for the incest alone.
No, that wasn't the incest episode. That was the pedophilia episode. The fact that they're
distinct is disturbing. Jeez.
Okay, it wasn't pedophilia as depicted in the episode. It was just strongly implied that one guy, Justin, I can't believe I remember his name. It was just strongly implied that Justin was heavily attracted to Dana when she was
underage.
A kid, yeah.
Well, I'll forever remember that episode not as the pedophilia episode, but as the episode where Avon kicks over a chair.
Mm-hmm. It's a good way to memorialize it.
It's just so absurd. More TV shows should have scenes where people just walk into a room and kick over a chair.
Yeah, can't say I disagree.
Anyway, thanks for reaching out, Stephen. I guess at this point we should announce that Stephen's actually going to be on our next episode, which is a question of priorities next week, so we can all look forward to having another voice in the fray. I don't think I used that word correctly, but whatever.
What, fray?
Yeah. Feels like I said that wrong. whatever. It doesn't matter.
In the mix.
Yeah,
I
in
guess.
the mix.
I don't know.
Any comments to read?
No.
All right.
Not as far as I know.
Then I guess that's the end of that. If you would like to email us, you can reach us at thedoctor@decadentvegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on conflict and the political meandering of episode 4 of UFO. You can find us on YouTube at Decadent Vegetable. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, and anywhere you find podcasts at Inevitable Classic Sci-Fi Podcast. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter at DYD Podcast and follow us on Twitter. And next time we're going to be watching A Question of Priorities. Straker faces a terrible decision. Attend to an alien defector or deliver life-saving medicine to his critically injured son. That sounds pretty interesting.
Straker has a son?
Apparently so, and apparently he's critically injured. So we'll find out next week. But until then, the end.